From Manipur, Koirengba waited at the top of the mountain. He waited until the next dawn. In the ancient Meitei cosmology of Manipur, the small mountain-rimmed valley state in India's northeast, between Assam and Burma, there is a story that begins in a time when the world did not have one sun. It had two. The two sons, in the old Meitei story, were brothers. They were born to the supreme god of the Meitei tradition, the deity called Atiya Sidaba, and to his consort. The older brother was named Tuhuiring. The younger brother was named Sanhanba. The Meitei storytellers say that the two sons shared the sky. They alternated. When Tuhuiring rose, Sanhanba set. When Sanhanba rose, Tuhuiring set. The world below, the small Manipur Valley with its forested mountains and its rice fields and its small fishing communities along the Loktak Lake, had, as a result, perpetual daylight. There was no night. The earth was always lit. The two suns moved continuously across the sky in alternating shifts. This arrangement, the Puya says, had worked for many ages. But it was about to fall apart. The problem, the Meitei storytellers say, was that the two sons began to compete. The younger brother, Sanhanba, became proud. He thought his own light was more beautiful than his older brother's. He insisted on rising at the same time as Tuhuiring, not in alternation, as before, but together. The older brother, Tuhuiring, refused to back down. The two brothers, each refusing to set when the other rose, ended up both standing in the sky at the same time. The earth, which had previously been lit by one sun at a time, was now lit by two. The heat became unbearable. The rice fields of Manipur dried up. The Loktak Lake began to evaporate. The small streams of the surrounding mountains dried into dust. The forest leaves curled and burned. The fish in the lake died in shoals. The animals of the forest retreated to the deepest caves. The Meitei villagers of the valley fell ill from heat. The crops failed. Famine began. The Meitei kings of the valley begged the gods for relief. The gods, however, could not interfere. Tuhuiring and Sanhanba were themselves gods, and divine politics did not permit one god to compel another to set. In one of the small fishing villages along the eastern edge of the Loktak Lake, there lived an old hunter named Koirengba. He was a Meitei man of the Kabui subclan. He was a widower. He had one son. His son had died in the heat, had collapsed in the rice field one afternoon and had not woken up. Koirengba had buried his son. He had returned to his small hut. He had sat in the doorway, looking at the sky, looking at the two suns. He had decided, the Puya says, that he would solve the problem himself. He picked up his hunting bow, a strong, simple, bamboo and gutstring bow that he had used for many years to hunt forest deer. He picked up his quiver. The quiver contained, by the Puya's count, exactly 7 arrows. He walked out of the village. He walked east. He climbed the slopes of the mountains east of the Loktak Lake. He climbed up into the high mountains. He climbed for many days. He climbed until he reached, the Puya says, the very edge of the sky, the high point where the two suns rose each morning. He waited there, in a small cave at the top of a peak. Koirengba waited at the top of the mountain. He waited until the next dawn. He saw, on the eastern horizon, the two suns rising together. He saw Tuhuiring, the older brother, and Sanhanba, the younger brother, emerge over the rim of the world. He drew his bow. He fitted his first arrow. He chose, the Puya says, to shoot the younger brother, Sanhenba, who was the one most responsible for the original argument. He aimed. He held. He breathed. He released the arrow. The arrow flew, the Puya says, in a single long arc across the sky. It struck Sanhenba in the chest. The younger son, in agony, fell from the sky. He fell behind the western mountains. He bled. His blood, on the way down, stained the western sky red. The older brother, Tohuring, saw what had happened. He was horrified. He saw his younger brother fall. He immediately fled. He sat behind the western mountains as well, hiding from any further arrows. The earth, in that instant, fell into total darkness. For the first time in the history of the world, there was no sun in the sky. The villagers of the valley below, looking up, were terrified. They had never seen darkness. They did not know what night was. They thought the world had ended. They lit fires in panic. They huddled in their huts. They wept. The crops, they realized, would now never ripen. There was no sunlight. Children cried for their mothers. Old people thought they were dying. The Meitei kings ordered great fires lit in the central villages. Then, after some hours, something new happened. Small lights began to appear in the sky. Tiny lights. Thousands of them. The Meitei astronomers, on the next nights, learned what these were. They were the stars. The stars had always been there, but they had been invisible because of the constant daylight of the two suns. Now, with no sun in the sky, the stars could finally be seen. The Meitei villagers, gradually, came to find the stars beautiful. They learned, also, about the moon, which had also been invisible before, but now rose in the dark sky and gave a gentle silver light. The world was different. The world, the villagers said, was actually rather lovely in this new way. The heat was gone. The fields could rest at night. The villagers could sleep. The crops, on the daytimes when Tohuring now rose alone, ripened properly. The water returned to the lakes. The fish returned. The famine ended. There was, however, still one problem. Tohuring, the older son, was now afraid. He had seen his younger brother shot down. He did not want to come back into the sky in case the same thing happened to him. He was hiding behind the western mountains. He refused to rise. The Meitei kings, after some days of total darkness, realized they would need daylight back. They called the wisest of the Meitei priests, the Meibais, the female priestesses of the Meitei tradition, and the Maibas, the male priests. The Meibais and the Maibas climbed up to the eastern mountain top where Tohuring was now hiding. They sang the old hymns of the Meitei tradition. They asked Tohuring to come back. They explained that the world needed him. They explained that Koiringwa, the old hunter, had only meant to shoot the younger brother, not him. Tohuring was not entirely convinced. He demanded a series of guarantees. He demanded that the world's people, every morning, sing a hymn of welcome to him as he rose. He demanded that there be temples, small Meitei sags, built in his honor in every valley village. He demanded that the moon, his younger sister, who had previously not appeared at all, would now rise instead of him at night, so that some light would always be available for the world. The Meitei priests agreed to all conditions. The bargain was struck. Tohuring rose, the next morning, alone, by himself. The world was, for the first time, lit by one sun. The arrangement has continued, the Meitei Puya says, ever since. The Numit Kappa, the Puya that tells this story, is one of the surviving Meitei Puyas, the ancient Manipuri language manuscripts that were composed before the 18th century, when the Manipuri royal court formally converted to Hinduism and began burning many of the older texts. The Numit Kappa survived the 18th century book burning because it had been hidden by a small group of Meitei priests in a cave above the Imphal Valley. It was rediscovered in the early 20th century. It is now considered one of the foundational texts of Meitei religious literature. The Meitei community of Manipur, about half of the state's population, still tells the story orally to children. The story is, in the Meitei understanding, the origin myth of the world. It explains why there is one sun, not two. It explains why there is night. It explains why there are stars. It explains, in the Meitei moral universe, the cost and the necessity of conflict, that sometimes one of two brothers must fall for the world to survive. It explains, finally, why Manipuri grandmothers, every evening at sunset, will quietly tell their grandchildren, "Thank the sun for setting tonight, because once long ago he refused to set and the whole world nearly died." Tomorrow's story comes from another corner of India. Subscribe to walk with us through the folklore of every region in your language.